Hello and welcome to Theme Park Information. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more content. In today's show we're going to pretty much be talking about how you skip the lines at Thorpe Park, or Thorpe Park Plan of Attack. Now Thorpe Park is a very difficult park to do this for. It tends to have fairly short hours, like normally like 10 till 6. It tends to be a park which is very easy for rides to have an hour queue and stuff like that. So pretty much you're going to have to really prioritise and really make the most of the first hour and last hour of your day. And I do also appreciate these sort of videos are never perfect. Certain days, certain rides might be busier than they would normally be. Sometimes you might just get really lucky and for whatever reason a ride is just really quiet when you go over to it, which is fantastic when it happens. But yeah, so let's get into it. So thing number one is the vast majority of people who arrive at Thorpe Park in the morning are going to be going towards Hyperia. It's brand new. It's probably going to have like a 2-hour line. You kind of want to miss it. Now, obviously, not everyone in the park is going to have that plan. Obviously, there are going to be a good number of people who are going to go for other rides. So you're just going to have to try and get on a fair amount of coasters before the initial rush and crowd separates and goes elsewhere. My personal view on it is you probably should start with Stealth. I say, in fairness, that ride has a fairly decent capacity and operates fairly good, so if it does end up with a bit of a queue, you can kind of come back to it. But it's a really good ride to get on because it's kind of out the way as well, and you can kind of work on that bit, and then you can try and go on to Nemesis. Again, this ride, can get like a really long line, but again, it's kind of out the way and up out the park. So if you do manage to get those two out the way, and they do have fairly short queues, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to classify as a short queue, maybe 10-15 minutes for each one. But as I say, and again, sometimes you're just going to find that maybe you go up to it, and for whatever reason, lots of people have had the same idea. But usually a really good idea to try and get those ones out early, get that corner of the park done. You're all good. Now, I appreciate some people will be looking that you could go to the Swarm really early on, and that is also a very good suggestion. The Swarm is pretty much kind of tucked away away from the rest of the park, and it's a great ride to do first or last because it is kind of out of the way. So I would probably say do it last. I did it last on my last visit, and it had like a 20-minute queue. I managed to get on it really quickly. It's the shortest amount of time I've ever queued for the Swarm. So yeah, take that how you want. So obviously you do have the Walker Dead, or formerly known as X on the way out as well. That's right in the centre of the park and kind of on the way from Nemesis Inferno. This one's one of those ones, if you are going to skip a ride, possibly this and Flying Fish, but I'd probably try and say get it done now. Get that sort of, and then pretty much you've kind of done that whole centre area, and then admittedly at some point you are going to have to go towards Hyperia, Solar Ride and Colossus, which will probably be the sort of busiest area of the park. Personally, again, I'd probably say get on Colossus, get that out of the way. That might have a bit of a queue. It really does vary. One of those things, either people who are, they could either still be going towards Hyperia, or you might have it where people have seen the queue and have gone to look for other stuff. As I say, at some point you're going to have to do it. So yeah, I'd probably say hopefully you've not wasted too much time beforehand. So I'd probably recommend, just go into Colossus, getting that done, getting that out the way. I would then recommend, depending on time, if you're doing really well on time, if the queues have been fairly light, I'd probably say go to Solar Ride. That tends to have fairly poor capacity, but in fairness, when I was there, it actually was running really well. I seem to be making loads of progress through the queue line. So that one is a risky one. I would say just double check before you decide to queue for it. But if not, I'd probably say grab some food. The sort of like 1 o'clock sort of time frame, quite a lot of people go for food. So if you're slightly ahead, if you're getting food slightly earlier, brilliant. And then what you want to do, and it's going to sound slightly strange, is you've obviously just eaten. You don't want to get on something straight away. This is where you then go and queue for Hyperia. You accept that you are going to be queuing for at least probably an hour, but you're going to give your food time to go down. You're going to have to go on it at some point. And at this point, hopefully you've done like a good amount of the coasters there or anyway. So literally, hopefully just you get a bit lucky and it's not like a 2-hour queue. But if it is, just have to deal with it. Like, at some point, yeah, it's like you're using the fact that you can't go on a ride immediately after you've just eaten, so you're going to use that time to let your food go down, go on Hyperia, I say, and then I say if you haven't been on solo ride, this would be the time to go on. Again, it will probably have like a relatively long line. If you're able to get on it before, brilliant. If not, now's the time. And then I say to finish off your day, probably Flying Fish and then the Swarm. I say Flying Fish, in fairness, you can go on it when you like, really. It's not going to be that busy. But right at the end of the day, it should be really quiet, because again, it's kind of tucked out the way. And I say it's exactly the same with the Swarm as well. Just out the way, just right at the end of the day. Obviously, if you have time for it, obviously there are quite a lot of really good flat rides. Obviously things like Vortex and stuff that is right by the front entrance, so you might think it's really busy, but it can also be bypassed very easily. Same with like Rush and stuff like that. And something like Depth Charge is also great to do at the end of the day. What you want to avoid going on is something like Storm Surge, that endlessly has like a 40-minute queue and is a terrible ride. Just avoid it. And again, also something like Tidal Wave could very easily have like a 30-40 minute queue, but you will get soaked. So again, it might not be worth it. You might want to give it a miss. And as I say again, that's a large section of the park of rides you don't need to worry about. Something like Samurai could be a very awkward one, because where it is kind of now smack bang in the middle of like loads of coasters in a really busy area, that can actually end up with like a very easy 40-minute queue. If you are able to get on it when it's not quite quiet, brilliant. If not, it's a sort of ride where you can give it a miss. They are quite a common ride concept. So, and also again, the rapids, if you were to go on those in the morning or just after Nemesis Inferno, would probably be the best sort of time. Again, I don't think they're usually too bad, but obviously, yeah, because they are tucked well out the way. But yeah, that's how I do it. Obviously, again, it is subject to change. It's going to depend on the day you're visiting, the hours, crowd levels, if what's working. And obviously, sometimes rides just have ridiculously long queues for no real reason. And you never know, you might end up being around Hyperia and it has like a 20-minute queue for some reason. Like, you know, these things have happened. They do happen. So anyway, leave your thoughts down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.